On today's show, it looks like the Cavs are going to get Max Strus back from his ankle injury, but Isaac Okoro going to miss at least the next 2 weeks. We'll talk about what all that means on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, my new Substack, The Inside Shot, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, is sponsored by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. So we did get some injury news on Thursday. If you're listening to this, that means it is Friday, and the Cavs are taking on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight after a 3-day break. Isaac Okoro will not be playing for the Cavs in this game. He will not be playing for the Cavs for the next 2 weeks. We found out on Thursday that he has an AC sprain in his right shoulder, going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. That does not necessarily mean he's only going to miss 2 weeks, but that's just kind of when we'll get the next update on his status. He could only miss 2 weeks. He could end up missing 4 weeks. I don't know what the timeline of this injury is going to be like. Shoulders can be a very tricky thing to deal with. He hurt it in that game against Brooklyn. He ran into a screen. I believe it was set by Ben Simmons. Oddly enough, he ended up hitting a three-pointer. I don't know if it was the next time down the floor or a couple possessions later, but ended up hitting a three-pointer before he left. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, what the Cavs are going to be missing without Isaac Okoro on the roster. And I am going to talk about Max Strus coming back too. I believe he's going to play tonight for the Cavs against the Bucks. He's listed as questionable on the injury report as of Thursday night. He went through practice both on Wednesday and Thursday. He met with the media on Thursday. I'll talk about what he said, what kind of impact I think he will bring coming up in just a little bit. But that is on today's show as well. But I do want to talk about Okoro because that is a for sure thing that he's not going to be playing. And obviously, when you think of Isaac Okoro, you think of Isaac Okoro, the defender, right? He's been, I think, for the past several years, the best point of attack defender on this Cavaliers roster. You very frequently see him taking on the toughest defensive challenge that the opponent has on the perimeter. I think that he's been a very good perimeter defender. I think he moves pretty well. I think he's one of the stronger perimeter guys in the NBA, just like in terms of brute strength. I think Isaac Okoro is up there. He's a really strong dude. And that is where the Cavs are going to miss him. They're going to miss him defensively. And I've been working on a story for the Substack, The Inside Shot, about how the defense has turned around. And a big part of it is switching and how physical they are in their switches now compared to in the month of November when they really weren't playing defense all that well. And I think Isaac Okoro is a big part of that because he's involved in so many of those actions, because he's defending really good players on the outside. That matters a lot to their defense. But what I don't necessarily know that we all think about when we see Isaac Okoro or even think of Isaac Okoro is what he brings to this team and what he has brought to this team on the offensive end of the floor. Because in the past, Isaac has been somebody that has kind of stood in the corner and defenses have allowed him to just stand there and they don't really pay attention to him. And he's going to shoot threes sometimes. Sometimes he's going to pass up open threes. Once in a while, he'll cut to the basket and finish, or, drive off a closeout. Sometimes he would do those things in the past. Where this year, I still don't think defenses are defending him with as much respect as they probably should. But as he heads onto the injury report, Okoro is second in the NBA in three-point percentage. You might not have known that. You might not have realized that. But Isaac Okoro is shooting 49.2% from beyond the three-point line this year. That is obviously a career high by quite a bit. I think last year he shot 39%. And you might say, okay, well, it's a small sample size. And that is part of the issue, is that it is a little bit of a small sample size, that Okoro is not somebody that shoots with a ton of volume. I think he's taking 2.7 3-pointers per game, which that's just not going to attract defenses. But he has consistently made defenses pay. And it's not just that he's standing in the corner knocking down these shots. He is knocking down a lot of corner threes. He's shooting, I think, 45% from the corners overall, but he's also making a ton of above the break 3-pointers. He's making 50% of his above the break 3-pointers. He's been put in different spots offensively, while he's still not somebody that moves a ton. And I do think that's where a big difference between Okoro and Max Strus is going to come in, with Strus back on the floor, because that's not just a 1-for-1 switch. I don't think he moves a ton, but the Cavs have used him as a screen setter. I think he's been a good screen setter. I don't know how many guys they have on the perimeter that can replicate that part of the game that the Cavs have had. He's made good decisions in the short roll. Think back to that Boston game when he found Evan Mobley in the dunker spot for what was, I essentially think, because they hit all their free throws, the game sealing dunk in that game. Isaac Okoro has been a big bright spot on both sides of the floor for this team. And are they going to be fine without him? Yeah, this Cavs team's really good. They've got a lot of depth. They have a lot of guys that can step in. You might see Sam Merrill get more minutes. This is going to create plenty of minutes for Max Strus as he starts to, ramp up his actual playing in basketball games. You're going to be able to see other guys on this roster pick up the slack. But that doesn't mean they're not going to miss Isaac Okoro, because all of those things Okoro has done at a very high level this year. This isn't to say that he's been some all-star caliber player or anything of the like, because that would not be the truth. But he's been a really good role player. And you need really good role players to get in the position the Cavs are. Yes, you need star power. You need your star players to be great. And the Cavs have had that because Donovan Mitchell's been awesome. Darius Garland's been awesome. Evan Mobley's been awesome. And I'm going to talk about the all-star discussion because voting did open on Thursday. So we're going to talk about that coming up a little bit later on in the show. Those guys have all been awesome. But think about how many games, as you go back through the schedule that the Cavs have played so far, think about how many games the Cavs have played that you can make a point to, okay, you know what? A role player made a really big play in that game that helped the Cavs win it. There are a lot of them that come to mind. I already mentioned one with Isaac. There are several, Sam Merrill has made several big plays. Dean Wade makes big plays, even though he's not shooting ball that well. I think he's played really well defensively, and I do think that he can be a candidate to replace a lot of what Isaac does on that end. But Isaac has kind of been the complete role player. He has been, and I don't necessarily love this cliche that some coaches have thrown around. Certainly coaches I've covered have thrown around before. But Isaac has been a star in his role. He's not a star player. He's a role player, but he's been a star in his role. And I do think that it's been a really great thing for the Cavs how well Isaac Okoro has played. I think maybe Jalen Tyson could get a crack at a certain point in replacing some of those Okoro minutes. But part of the issue with the roster construction for the Cavs, and it's hard for me to really call it an issue because of how good they are, but everybody knows that this is a roster that is thin on the wing, right? They're very, and I think it sort of depends how you define Karis LeVert. Like, I think of him more as a backcourt player than wing. But they've got Dean Wade, who has struggled to stay healthy. Isaac Okoro, who's been awesome, but now you don't know when you're going to see him again. Max Strus hasn't played this year. They've been thin at that spot. And losing Okoro is something that is going to hurt. It's not going to be something that really submarines this team. They're really good. They're going to find a way through it. But they're not going to be at their best without Isaac Okoro on the floor. I do think that his minutes were probably going to go down just a little bit because of the way that, Kenny's going to handle the rotation with Max Strus coming back. But I do think that they're going to miss him. He's been an awesome shooter. And I don't think that that gets talked about enough, just how good he's been at making open shots. And yeah, a lot of those shots are wide open because defenses are not respecting him. He doesn't necessarily have the gravity that someone typically shooting his percentage would have, right? Like when you think of, oh man, that guy's shooting almost 50% from three, there's always got to be a defender just on his hip. He doesn't have that gravity because he doesn't take even 3 of them a game. And, I asked Kenny Atkinson about that on Thursday after practice. And he said, kind of get there, you need to be around 4. Could Isaac get there? Maybe. On nights, he certainly is there. I don't know that he could average 4 per season. I just don't know that there are that many shots to go around. But I do think it's a really interesting thing to see how the Cavs are going to ultimately replace all of these minutes. Offensively, because they've been so good and because they have so many weapons, and I do too have a lot of faith in Sam Merrill to come out of the shooting slump that he's been in for a few weeks. I think they'll be able to replace him. Defensively, I think they're going to be asking a lot of Dean Wade. I think they're going to be asking a lot of Max Strus too as he comes back. What is he going to look like immediately when he gets back? Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what to expect from Max Strus because he might be making his season debut tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. That's next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. What is Prize Picks? Like I said, the best place to get real money action on your favorite sports. But they also have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. And Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just have to pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports. More than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Florida. Prize Picks the best way to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million members and sign up today. Prize Picks also now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5, and you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what you need to do, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's show is also brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has a solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything's delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team, complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. That's rocketrx.com. ROCKETRX.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. So again, that's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions to apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Almost said if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, which you should do. But Max Strus, I think he's going to play on Friday night against the Milwaukee Bucks. As I've been telling you guys, really for the entire month of December. I had been hearing the middle of December for Strus's return. I think December 20th qualifies as the middle of the month. So I think he's going to play tonight. He met with the media on Thursday, which is a pretty sure sign that Strus is going to play. If not tonight, tomorrow against Philadelphia. I would be a little surprised if he plays both ends of a back-to-back as his first 2 games of a season. The Cavs obviously play Milwaukee tonight, Philadelphia tomorrow, both games at home. I don't think Max Strus will play in both of those. I would be stunned if he doesn't play in one of those. So what does Max Strus bring to the team, right? Because we've talked about whether he's going to play, whether he's not going to play, but I don't know that we've spent enough time actually talking about Max Strus because Max Strus is a really good basketball player. There's a reason why the Cavs went out and got him a couple of summers ago. There's a reason why that he has been in the ideal starting 5 when you think back to last year and how many injuries this team dealt with. One of the key stats thrown around was, well, their ideal starting 5 only started 28 games together, right? Max Strus was part of that group. He was a starting small forward. I think that when he's fully back up to speed, which I don't know how long that's going to take, because I'm a firm believer that no matter how hard you work, and Max Strus is a guy that I do think works extremely hard. No matter how hard you work, you can't get into game shape without playing in actual games. There's no substitute for playing in NBA games. You can do everything that I believe in, I've been told Max has done behind the scenes to get ready, But until you actually play in basketball games, I do think that it's going to take a little bit of time, and that's fine. The Cavs are in a position where they can absolutely be patient with this. And I do think once that's cleared, I think that he will be the starting small forward. I think that makes sense. I think he fits in with that group. And the one thing that I'm super excited to see with Max, and it's the thing that Kenny Atkinson has brought up the most with him, is the way he's going to move off ball, the way he's going to cut to the basket. That is a thing that I do think it can be taught, but I think some guys just have like a really good sense and a really good feel for the timing of it. And I think Max is one of those guys that you look at him, you watch him even last year, and in an offense last year that was definitely did not have the type of movement I think we see in Kenny Atkinson's version of the Cavs offense. He would still be somebody that was trying to move without the ball all the time. And it didn't necessarily work as well because I don't think that the offense was structured perfectly for him. I think that Max Strus is a perfect fit for a role player in this offense. I really do. I don't know how many role players like him that you would rather have in this position. So I think that is one of the really important things to see is what is his movement off the ball going to be like? The question I have is what's his shot from the outside going to be? Because I meant, just talking about Isaac Okoro and how good of a shooter he's been so far this season for the Cavs, they are going to need to replace that production somewhere. Max can certainly be part of it. In last year from beyond the arc, I think some people were a little bit disappointed. He shot 35% from three. Is it possible he shoots 40% this year? I don't see why it wouldn't be. I don't see why Max can't get that. I think he's going to this year because of how good the Cavs offense has been, because of how many guys they have that he's going to likely be on the floor with all the time. You think about Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley. All three of those guys have gravity right now. And I think that's teams are going to have to defend to Max Strus tighter than they've defended Isaac Okoro. So that is I think that the decision teams are going to have, and I do think that we're not going to be far off from watching them have to make this decision on Isaac Okoro. But I do think that the decision we are going to start to see teams have to make is how tight do I defend Max Strus versus how much am I willing to help off of Max Strus and help on Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell or Evan Mobley, three guys who have all been awesome offensively all year. Now, Max's gravity is already bigger than Isaac's by nature of, even if he's not going to shoot 50%, he's going to take 6 threes a game. And that's going to be something that you look at. Okay, teams are going to have to respect that. And volume isn't everything, just like making shots isn't necessarily everything when you think about the structure of an offense. Sometimes you're going to miss shots, but if you're willing to keep shooting them, that's going to be a really good thing. Max Strus is always going to be willing to keep shooting them. Defensively, I'm very curious to see how he holds up because he is going to slide into that Isaac Okoro role. I don't view him as somebody who is as good of a defender as Okoro. I think he's a little bit lesser, but that doesn't mean he's a bad defender. I do think he's a good defender. I think he's a different type of defender than Okoro, where I view Isaac as somebody that's a little bit more physical. I think Max is probably a little bit quicker than Isaac. And I just think that there are areas where he can create advantages defensively that maybe Isaac couldn't, just in the way that there are definitely areas Isaac could create advantages for himself defensively that Max maybe can't. And it gets into the switching thing too. And that is really interesting to me because Kenny Atkinson, Donovan Mitchell, even when I asked him about it on Thursday, they point to that as one of the turnarounds for this defense. And I think Isaac is the perfect guy for that because of how physical he can be on the perimeter. Is Max going to be that physical right away? I don't know. Max is never one that has shied away from physicality. I know that for sure, but I don't know that that's going to be the right way. And again, the Cavs are 23-4. They can afford to be a little bit patient here when you think about these things. They don't need to look like a team that can win the finals tonight, tomorrow. Now, they very well could look like that because that's who they've been for most of the year, but they've built themselves the ability to let this be a little bit of a work in progress, which it might be. Like, I would imagine Max Strus is probably going to be on a minutes restriction tonight. When he plays next, whether it's tomorrow or Monday, he's probably still going to be on a minutes restriction. It's going to take him a little bit to get back. And as for the actual injury, he missed 9 weeks. That's a really long time. He was asked what happened. He didn't really want to get into details about how he hurt it. He just said that it was kind of a freak accident playing basketball. He again did not want to get into details of it, but one of the toughest parts for him has been the mental side of things, right? Like when you go through an injury that is as bad as his was, and for an ankle sprain to keep you out for 9 weeks, it has to be really bad. I do think that there's something to where he has to learn to trust his body again. And part of that is going through the rehab process. But I do think part of that mentally is going to be when he gets on the floor, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, Monday, whenever it is, when he gets back on the floor, I do think that there's going to be some, I'm hesitant to say mental hurdles, but there's probably going to be some thoughts about it. Like it's probably something that's going to creep in his mind at some point. He did say when I asked him about it, he's like, you just kind of hope the adrenaline takes over at a certain point. And I would guess he's going to be really amped up to be back on the floor when he is back on the floor. But overall, he's somebody that's going to be a big help to the Cavs. It might not be right away because, like I've mentioned, you're not in game shape until you're playing games. So it might not happen right away. But when Max Strus gets back to full strength, I do think that he's going to be able to take this Cavs team, particularly on the offensive end of the floor. I think he's going to be able to take them to a level that maybe we haven't quite seen yet, despite them having the best offense in basketball. And I think that's a really, really good thing for the Cavs and might be something that's scary to some other teams in the NBA. Well, across the NBA on Thursday, all-star voting campaigns were revealed. How many all-stars do I think the Cavs should have as of right now? Well, I think you probably know the answer. But let's talk about those three guys next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. We've got the first ever on site, on campus, college football playoff game. Notre Dame taking on Indiana. Notre Dame is I believe, 7.5 point favorite on FanDuel. I like Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame a lot. I kind of like Notre Dame to win the whole thing. I think their draw is great. I think that their defense is awesome. I think they're really strong, both on offense, on the offensive line and the defensive line. I think the quarterback is good enough. I think the quarterback run game is really good. And I think Jeremiah Love is one of the most explosive offensive players in the country. I think that linebacking group for Notre Dame is awesome. And then Xavier Watts on the back end, I think is one of the best, if not the best, safety in the country. I like Notre Dame to beat Indiana. I don't think Indiana's all that good. I know they had one big game against Ohio State. They lost it pretty big, and they kind of copped out, too, at the end. They didn't want the score to get run up on them. They wanted to make it look a little bit better than it actually was. I think the Fighting Irish win on Friday night. Maybe you do. If you do, go on over to FanDuel because right now, 7.5 points. That's what they're laying. Or you could get them on the money line, -265. I like them on the point spread. I think that they're going to win by double digits. I really do. And if you place $5 on that and you're a new customer of FanDuel, you can get started with $150 in bonus bet if that $5 bet wins. Just head on over to FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to join today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. All-star voting underway in the NBA. I think that the Cavs should have 3 guys make the all-star team. I think Donovan Mitchell should make the all-star team. I think Evan Mobley should make the all-star team. I think Darius Garland should make the all-star team. I think it's very possible that that does happen. I think first and foremost, Donovan Mitchell should and will be an all-star. I think he should be an all-star starter. I do think that he has been one of the best shooting guards in all of basketball this year. I think that Jalen Brunson has an argument to be a starter. I think Damian Lillard probably has an argument to be a starter. I think Darius Garland might have an argument to be a starter too. But when I look at this, all those guys deserve to be all-stars. I need to be very clear about that as I begin this discussion. All of those guys deserve to be on the all-star team. But I think that when things are as close as they are, and I do think that Donovan has probably been the best of the bunch, maybe Jalen Brunson, but the Cavs have such a good record that I also think that needs to be rewarded a little bit. Like all-star is an individual honor, but you're foolish if you don't think that team success drives it too, or is at least part of it. Like you can be an all-star on a bad team. Like for example here, I think Cade Cunningham in Detroit absolutely 100% deserves to be an all-star. Pistons, not a very good record. They're much better than they were before. But I think that for Cade to be an all-star, he needs to be better than if the Pistons record was inverse. Detroit right now, as I record this, is sitting at 11-16. Cade is having an awesome season. If Detroit was 16-11, Cade's numbers could look a little bit lesser. He probably would still be an all-star. But if his numbers were lesser now and they're 11-16, he's not going to make the all-star team. Does that make sense? So I do think that winning matters when it comes to tiebreakers or if you're close. And I think that the Cavs having the best record in basketball and the backcourt decision is not between someone in the Cavs backcourt and someone in the Boston Celtics backcourt, right? Like it's not Drew Holiday or Derek White against Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. You're talking about Jalen Brunson. You are talking about Damian Lillard. And the Bucks have been much better. And the Knicks are sitting in third, but they're 6.5 games behind the Cavs. Like there's just a big gap there. So I do think Donovan Mitchell should be a starter. I think Darius Garland should be on the team. He's had the best year of his career so far. He's shot the ball awesome. His numbers per 36 are absolutely outstanding. I think it's a great story too, considering what he went through last year, just how poor of a season he had last year because of all the things that he had to deal with. So I do think that you just consider that storyline a little bit. And then in the front court, man, I really do think that Evan Mobley should and will be an all-star for the first time in his career. So far this year, all of his offensive numbers are up. He's averaging 18.4 points a game, which is the most he's ever averaged in his career. His rebounds are a little bit down. I don't view that as a big deal. But scoring, shooting, he's been really good, shooting 41% from three, shooting 56% overall, shooting just under 60% on twos, which is the second best mark of his career. Like he's been an awesome offensive player. And that's without even talking about how good he is defensively, where I think he's got a lot of respect from everybody around the league. I don't expect him to be a starter. Fan vote matters a lot. I think Donovan Mitchell will get a lot of fan vote. I don't know that anyone else will on the Cavs. Maybe Darius Garland does, but I don't think Evan Mobley will. But I do think ultimately that all three of those guys deserve to be on the All-Star team and will be on the All-Star team. So you are an All-Star if you made Locked On Cavs your first listen today. You are in all NBA caliber listen if you make it your first listen every single day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube, do me a big favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Maybe drop a comment if you think all three of those guys deserve to be an all-star for the Cavs as well. I will talk to you tomorrow. Cavs take on the Bucks tonight. I'll have an episode after that. And then Saturday, Cavs, Sixers. I'll cover that game as normal. I will have an episode afterwards. So keep it locked here all weekend long because Locked On Cavs is not stopping.